Hey everybody, I hope and pray that you're doing well today as we come to our word from the Word. And today that word is purpose. Purpose. I'm going to hit you with this line right from the beginning. God can use anything and anyone to accomplish his purposes. Now, we saw that yesterday as we were looking about the donkey and that Balaam was riding, and he used that donkey to accomplish his purpose. Now, as you move on, and we're going to be following in the next few chapters, you're going to follow Balaam's oracles or his pronouncements on Israel. And Balak is trying to get him. He's hiring him. Remember, this unholy man. He is hiring him to curse Israel. So you're going to see, and especially as you see in this chapter, at least twice in this chapter, as he goes to bless them, he goes, they offer up sacrifices, and he's going to curse Israel. And remember what he told him. Hey, God told him, you can go, but you're only going to say the things that I tell you to say. So as he goes, he says, hey, we'll offer up the sacrifices. You stay here, Balak, by the sacrifices. I'm going to go off by myself, see if the Lord will meet with me. And he does. The Lord meets with the unholy Balaam and then tells him what he's going to say. So he goes back, and then he pronounces, instead of a curse on Israel, he pronounces a wonderful blessing. And so through these chapters, you're going to see, through these oracles, you're going to see blessings on Israel that really kind of sum up the things that God has done and is going to do for them. And what a beautiful picture it is. But let's look and see what Balaam says as a result. And it's something that I love here. Verses 11 and 12 of Numbers chapter 23 today. Then Balak said to Balaam, what have you done to me? I took you to curse my enemies, and look, you have blessed them bountifully. So he answered and said, must I not take heed to speak what the Lord has put in my mouth? You know, shouldn't that be the heart of purpose that we have? That we understand that, the only thing we should be speaking is that which God would have us to say. Especially as we're sharing the gospel and talking about honoring God. And here he is trying to go out and curse God's people. And he's even trying to offer sacrifices to earn God's approval to curse the Israelites. And that's just not going to happen. And especially as you see at this point, many of us would say, hey, look, they deserve it, man. Some of the things they've done, man, they deserve it. But you're not going to come against God's people unless God says you can. You see this throughout Israel's history. Yes, there are times where he uses the Babylonian invasion, right? As he uses that time as discipline for them. But it's still in God's control. And it wasn't because Babylon just all of a sudden came up with it and said, hey, we're going to curse Israel. It's because God says, I'm going to use Babylon. I'm going to use them as my hand of discipline on you. But see, God can use anything and anyone to accomplish his purpose. Why don't we want to be part of that purpose? Here we have Balaam, as I said, unholy, because you think of the ways he's trying to manipulate God and even what other passages of Scripture tell us about him. And yet God uses him. Now, it's been said, well, God can't use an unclean vessel. And I read one commentary, and I love how they put it, said, okay, we've heard it said that God can't use an unclean vessel, but he can. The difference is what he does with that vessel when he's done with it. And I thought, man, how powerful that is. So, yes, we need to be clean vessels to be used, and then we'll be vessels that will be kept, right, and preserved in glory. But yet those unclean vessels that he uses, even as Babylon, as he uses as a tool of judgment and discipline. And even here, as he's using Balaam as a source of blessing instead of a source of a curse. What happens when he's done with them? What happens when his purpose has already been fulfilled through them? See, I think many times we look and we say, well, God, I want you to do this. And we sing the hymn, make me a channel of blessing. But the problem is that we want the blessings to be the way we want them to be. And we want to kind of be like Balak, right? And Balaam at the beginning of it, as he's going, we want to kind of twist the arm of God, and we want to, hey, I'm offering sacrifices, and hey, I'm doing the things that you require, so come meet with me. And God may even meet with you and then tell you what his purpose is. But as we leave that place, we're still only going to be using and doing what God would have us to do according to his purpose. See, it shows us that, man, we ought to desire to be not just a part of the plan beforehand, we want to be a part of the plan afterwards too. That we want to be actually not just blessing Israel, not just blessing other people. We want to be a channel of blessing that comes from the heart, not because God had to really interrupt what we wanted to do. See, Balaam, every time he tries to do what he wanted to do, God made him bless Israel. And I think it's kind of funny to think about it. But then it also shows you how desperately wicked people can be and how they don't give up either. Notice I told you 2 times in this chapter, and it's like he tells Balak, well, maybe we just got in the wrong spot. Maybe we need to move somewhere else so we'll be more in the God's favor. And how many times do we, in our flesh, right? How many times do we try to maneuver around and think, well, wait a minute, God didn't give me the answer I wanted there. Let me move over here and let me try it this way and see if now I can get the answer that I want. It's the same thing that Balak did when he was trying to get Balaam to go in the first place. But through it all, our focus as believers, right? These are examples of unbelievers. As believers, we ought to also have that same thought that says, you know what? I'm not going to say anything. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to go anywhere unless it is God has purposed in my heart for me to go. Our men's Bible study, we're going through the book of Daniel. And one of the things I loved about the book of Daniel is that Daniel purposed in his heart. He made a decision ahead of time about what he was going to do and what he wasn't going to do. That's the same thing that we need to do today. So today, will you purpose in your heart to be a part of God's purpose? God bless you. And I pray you have a great, great day.